these sound like they would cost money. An ombudsman, early education. How would you pay for it?
Okay. First of all, I'm going to say most of this does not cost money. I'm talking about shifting priorities, and I'm talking about using existing state resources such as the capital budget to make some investments. More of an investment in early childhood would cost money. There's no question about it. And as we see our economy rebounding, that's going to be a top priority. But I don't have proposals at this point to pump a lot of new money in because I'm not prepared to say where that might come from. But I know it has to be a priority, even within existing budgets. But Terry, that's one of the reasons I've been saying, and I've been willing to say, we cannot continue to cut our way out of this problem the way we've been cutting in the last couple of years, because we'll end up actually investing less money in early childhood if we aren't willing to look to rainy day funds and perhaps other sources of revenues to get us through this.
Okay, but you're talking about better infrastructure too,
Yep.
better roads and more broadband. All sounds like it costs money.
They do cost money, and the reason we don't have better broadband is that we have not been willing to make that investment. First of all, we are getting federal money, and we need to continue to use that money wisely and efficiently. Secondly, we do have existing budgets, transportation budgets and capital budgets, and I would look to reorder priorities there to say that broadband and telecommunications, for example, should be just as important to us and to our economic future as our roads and bridges are. And where it's going to cost more money, then when we develop a plan, then I'll develop a plan to pay for it. But I don't think we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars to do this. I think we're talking mostly about a shifting in priorities, working closely with our congressional delegation to get the help that they can provide us to target the assistance that Vermont can get to our priorities in Vermont, and making sure we get through this budget problem without doing further damage to our infrastructure.
On broadband, though, the private telephone companies say, and cable companies and so on, say that it's difficult to make that work economically because of the sheer cost of
Yep.
trying to string cable out along these rural roads.
Yep.
Not enough customer base to support that. Meanwhile, we've seen a public effort at broadband in a densely populated area, Burlington Telecom, run into problems of its own. How do you actually pull that off, and how do you suddenly make deployment of broadband economical for rural areas?
We've all been talking about it in this campaign, and that's why I've been saying I think you start with our population centers and our commercial centers. We do want high-speed internet access. In some places, it should be fiber. In some places, fiber may be the technology of the future, but not of today. But we can get high-speed broadband access to every home in the state, and that's what we should do. Clearly, we've needed federal money. The reason it hasn't happened is the legislature and the governor have talked about it, but never made the investment. It doesn't happen with existing resources. It doesn't happen without the state making an investment. We hear the analogy with rural electrification a lot. Well, rural electrification didn't happen for free. It happened because the federal government made investments. And I'm really pleased that the federal government, through our congressional delegation, has been making investments in Vermont. We've received some significant grants in the last few weeks that are going to help us get there. I would look to make sure we're working with the private entities there to make it possible. But it wouldn't be happening, David, and you're right, without that infusion of money. It's not going to happen just by what we charge the customer at the end of the line.